So, what does DC need to do to beat Marvel consistently? Well, I think the answer is in the recent past. It may not be one people really like, but there is an answer. Hey, this is Perch. Talking about DC versus Marvel, and for the last it feels like long time, although it really hasn't been that long. Not spoiler alert. Marvel has been consistently beating DC in the numbers, and it hasn't necessarily been close. It kind of depends on your point of view. There's month to months where DC is able to pull out a dollar or unit sale win, or sometimes both. But the general momentum and market feeling is with Marvel. Marvel has a grasp on the industry, and DC, even when they win, there's this perception within shops and at conventions and then, at the retail level that DC is playing catch up, and it's a weird feeling, and it's actually one that Disney cultivates with all of their properties, the feeling like they are dominant even when they're not. There's a way you market and the way you message and the way you present yourself that you are the leader. And if you do that enough, then eventually you are the leader. And that's kind of the approach that's been taken with Marvel, because if you look at the numbers, typically speaking, Batman, whether it's the actual title Batman or whether it's Batman Who Lulls, or there's just or one of the different Batman, that would be a very different Batman. Batman Last Night on Earth. There's typically Batman titles at the top of the charts in one form or another, generally speaking. And then you have kind of a mismatch of Marvel stuff. And part of the way, if you look at the numbers, you kind of get the impression that DC is doing better, because the titles that Marvel has up in the top 10 are often, yeah, I'd say wildly inconsistent. The Immortal Hulk has been there for a while. The Unkillable Hulk. I don't like the adjectives. I don't. It felt like it was a riff on the Uncanny X-Men for a while, and then it became like the Marvelous Miss Marvel and the Unflappable Squirrel Girl and the Uncancelable Wasp, and it's just there's enough with the prefixes. Just enough. You know, the white guilt Captain America. I don't know if that. No, that's too far. Too far. Anyway, it's bad because I don't I read on Twitter, not all day. That's an exaggeration, but I look. There's just such a stream of kind of jokes and memes, and a lot of them are not ones I agree with. But there gets to be some humor there after a while. So you definitely start to feel not nauseated, but just like enough is enough. Anyway, but Marvel has the Hulk there. Spider-Man will sometimes appear if they're doing an event. You'll have like War of the Realms show up and then vanish, and so Marvel's appearance in the top 10 is usually pretty fluid, not in a good way, fluid, but just kind of inconsistent. From a retailer perspective, that's not great. Yet when the numbers come in aggregate, Marvel is typically winning. And again, part of it's reality they are pulling in, and part of it's kind of how they message and market themselves. But what can DC do to win? Well, the answer is kind of looking back to the last time DC was dominant for more than a month or two, when they were dominant for a couple of years, and that was actually the New 52. Um, Rebirth put them back up, but again, not consistently. That flame sputtered out rather quickly for a number of reasons. And the New 52, though, had some real staying power. That was DC kind of, they were dominant for a pretty good length of time. And the secret in why they were dominant was not because they rebooted and relaunched. A bunch of people took that message away from that. That was the wrong message to take. But rather that there was a focus on the books. I think one thing that DC did, I thought on purpose, but as more and more time goes by, I think it was done on accident, is they presented a message of, we are DC, we're publishing 52 comics, here's how they fit into the universe. There's some superhero books, and there's some mystery books, and there's some experimental books, and there's some B characters getting books for the first time, and they just presented a very easy, consumable slate to readers, where they had a lineup they could digest. And you may say, what does this have to do with comics? I'd like to read comics. It's all this digest crap, and that doesn't make any sense. Well, it's just marketing 101. It's basically saying, hey, buyer, we're going to make the product easy for you to buy. And when we say easy for you to buy, we mean we're going to streamline what it is. We're going to promote the title. We're going to tell you that the title is sticking around for a year. We're going to, we've got a creative team. We're going to put that creative team front and center, and we're not going to, morph it or modify it. There's also a little bit we're going to kind of lay out our vision for the book, and we're going to stick to that vision. And once again, you may be thinking, yeah, big deal. What does that really mean? Well, it is a big deal because the titles that are out today at both DC and Marvel it's very hard as a consumer to kind of tell what the message is, what's going on with these books. And in many cases, the message is not it's not consistent, and fans and buyers have come to mistrust whatever message is actually promoted there. Maybe that the publisher is claiming they're going to do this with the book, but that's not actually what happens with the book. So then, a decent level of mistrust sets in on what the publisher is even saying. And so how do you sell? So if you're DC, what do you need to do to beat Marvel, and what do you need to do to kind of get yourself back in the game? Well, look at the New 52. Forget about the reboot and all the rest. Forget about throwing away your characters, and take your titles. Pretend you're a editor in chief, and just lay the books out on the table. Say, what does my portfolio look like? Where do I have too many books? I've got a lot of Batman here. Is that, they're all selling. That's good, but how risky is that? We're putting a lot of eggs in the Batman basket. So how do we want to diversify that up a little bit? It's funny because a lot of the terms that get beat up on Twitter that people really go out all the time and they attribute to, quote unquote SJWs, is this idea of diversity bad, forced diversity, that kind of stuff. But the reality is, and this is the part that kind of drives me crazy about the whole thing and why I make enemies on both sides, is diversity of lineup is a good thing, and appealing to new markets is a good thing. And I think you should do that. It's smart, sound business strategy. But you have to do it with a strategy. And if you have no strategy, if you have no ideas other than let's do some diversity, but that's kind of where the ideas end, then you should not do diversity. You shouldn't do anything but just mine your existing characters. You should just keep going back to that well and doing what works, and don't. It's like if you are if you're trying to feed yourself every night, but you are a terrible cook. You don't know how to cook anything. You burn water. You can't make anything. You can make toast, and that's it. That's pretty much the only weapon you have in your arsenal is toast. And you can take toast and you can put peanut butter on it, and it's not bad, but that's it. You can do nothing else. Well, you have a couple choices. You can go learn how to cook. That's a good idea. You can, go out to eat every night, but you run out of money. Ultimately, if you do not want to starve, then you need to eat toast. You need to keep eating toast until you know what you're doing. The dumb thing would be to go and buy a bunch of ingredients and be like, well, I don't know what I'm doing, but let's try filet mignon tonight. Oh, I screwed that up, and now it's inedible. I guess I'll eat toast. And then the next day you come back and you're like, I think I'll make a souffle. It's like, just don't stay in your lane. If you don't know what you're doing, learn what you're doing. But this is where a lot of the diversity stuff, like, hey, let's go after a teen female market. That's an excellent idea. There's a ton of money in that market. There's a lot of proven books in that market. Go after that market. Oh, you did it like an idiot. Well, that was a mistake. You should have either A, hired somebody who knew what they were doing in that market, or B, not done it in the first place. Either choice. But the worst answer is you don't get like, and maybe this is God, sad to say, maybe this is a whole, the old. It depends on if you're old or not, but there's this phrase like everybody gets a trophy in soccer, and then nobody really learns how to play soccer because who cares? You're all getting a trophy anyway. That may be a bit what this is like. I mean, and because I think in business, and you hear this from time to time. I talked to a friend who's a management coach, and they go, Whether the person succeeds or fails, you have to make them feel like they did a good job. Like, but no, no, you don't. No, sorry. If they failed, they did not do a good job. That is a bad idea. And this has nothing to do with social politics or justice or diversity or anything else. This is more fundamental than that. It's like if you are successful, you should be rewarded with more responsibility, more books, more things. If you are a failure, you should be rewarded by getting fired or getting sent to school where you can learn what you're doing. And I think that's what managers have to do. They look at people who are failing and they say, okay, you have potential, you just don't know what you're doing. So we're going to send you to classes and then you will learn better and then things will get better. And you sniff glue. So you're just going to we're going to try and get you out of here. So like a zombie, you don't infect others with your dumb and then the whole place goes up in fire. That's kind of the A and B path we have to pick. So, what does DC need to do? They need to treat their products like a portfolio. They need to say, where do we have our bets in terms of Superman style comics, Batman style comics, other characters we want to do, B characters we want to promote, just like they did in the New 52. And then they need to promote clearly what you can expect out of those titles, what they're going to look like, the creative team, and all the rest. And then you need to stick by it. You need to then really buckle in and say, all right, we're going to give this comic a good 12 issue run. The most important thing we can do is instill in our readers a sense of stability, a sense that when they buy on into this comic and they're coming on the ride with us, that we're giving them a ride. We're not going to yank the rug out from under them 6 issues in and kind of pull the plug. We're going to tell them, look, you try this book out, you're getting a year. You're getting a year out of us. I mean, when you're owned by Time Warner and you've got these kinds of pockets and comics, for all the money we talk about this and that, they're not that expensive to produce, especially in how cheaply some things are made these days. So it should be viable to say, look, we're going to build up some IP for you. We're going to do this. What we need in return is we need a commitment of this is the budget. We're going to spend it for the year. We're going to spend it wisely. And if we don't, then we're getting other jobs. And we accept that. We accept that us at the management level of DC are getting fired if we don't do this right. And then buckle down and give stability. Tell readers, hey, look, we're asking you for $3.99, well, $2.99, let's say $2.99, okay, for the course of the year. We're asking you for $36 and change. That's what we're asking for you. So in return, that's a lot of money for comics. That is 220, no, like 260 odd pages, a little bit more than that, but 280, close to 280 pages of book for $36. And that's not a bad proposition. Okay, this is you give us the $36. We're going to give you the 280 pages. We're going to fill this with a consistent writer and artist, and we're going to tell you a story, and that's what we're going to do for you. Okay, that's not a bad value to sale option. I mean, it's still too high, but at least you can make that argument. But then you got to deliver on it by fulfilling the promise, actually giving them something. And I think this is where DC has an advantage over Marvel because they have some properties that are well defined, iconic over the years, and they also have some new properties to play with. And they can basically set this up as this is what we're going to do. And you might be saying, hey, wait a minute, didn't DC try this with the New Age of Heroes? No, in fact they did the opposite of what I'm saying at nearly every turn. Okay, they gave very poor marketing. Sorry, they said, here's a New Age of Heroes. It was not clear how many books were coming out, who exactly the teams were, what was going on. They published a ton of books of like, here's a creative team, and here's some characters, and here's another creative team, and here's some characters. Except right away, the creative team became not the creative team. Okay, they did not stick on the title. That's problem number one. Some didn't stick on the title for even the entire first issue, mainly Jim Lee. Others vanished after 2-3 issues. And then they messed around with the character and the point of what we were getting. That just started to change. And then they did a really hacky job of integrating into the rest of the DC universe to the point that it was unclear whether they existed in the DC universe or not at times. And some obviously did because you had the guest stars right up front. Some did not, and it was confusing what was going on. And there was a it was very hard to, they didn't market the books right. Is this a horror title? Is it a superhero book? Is it a spy thriller? What's going on? Silencer was a book that more or less people liked at the beginning. It did decent to poor numbers, and it was, but it was hard to tell, what is this book. You ever heard the thing of, like, you need to have your elevator pitch down? This is what DC did very well for the New 52. They had the elevator pitch down. If you buy Green Lantern, this is what you're getting. If you buy Superman with Grant Morrison, you're getting early Superman as he's just starting to become Superman. If you buy, Batman with Snyder and Capullo, you're getting kind of high energy, zany, some new character. Batman's doing amazing things you never believed you'd ever see Batman doing. Okay, you need your quick 10-second pitch to close your book, to make it strong and make people understand. And I think all DC needs to do, really all they need to do, is get their lineup. Don't spread too thin. Get Bendis the hell off 20 books, and so he's only writing 10. That's an exaggeration, but not by much. Get your portfolio nicely balanced. Definitely, yes, diversity. Get some diverse content in there. Get it in there. Hire people who know what the hell they're doing when you're chasing these other markets. The guy who's been writing Hawkman is not a shot at the guy who's been writing Hawkman. The person who's been writing Hawkman for the last, X number of years and is a DC Comics veteran, great guy. Probably not the guy to chase the tween girl market. Probably you need to hire a different writer for that. Where do you get that different writer? Let's see. And part of your network is somebody who hangs around the same Portland comic book store as you. No, that's not the place to get it. Go, go find people. Use your publishing arm of your parent to find people who have submitted pitches for books in that area. Find one that's reasonable, that for whatever reason didn't work as a book, and interview them. See what their portfolio looks like. Do some talent searches. You have to go outside your network. And oh shit, that's so much work. Oh, sorry, don't usually swear in these things, but it's always like, oh no, this is so much work. Oh, what am I going to do? It's so hard. Yeah, it's hard. That work is hard. work is work. It's not all like, hey, let me go to my Rolodex and talk to the people that I know from the comic shop down the street and that I meet at the Comic Con, and hook them up for a job. You're talking about a IP farm. It's not, I don't mean it in a bad word way, that feeds $1 billion industry. So maybe you need to do a little work. The next big property is not going to come from, the person you struck up a conversation with at Starbucks. Yeah, but it could. No, but it won't, though. It won't. Yes, I could win the lottery tomorrow and, screw the videos, be living in Maui for the rest of my life. But that's not going to happen either. Is it possible? Sure. Is it going to happen? Absolutely not. It's not going to happen to anybody listening to this video. Sorry. It's just downvotes. I get downvotes now. But that's how DC makes it work. There's a definite way to make it work, and that's it. Provide a very clear lineup to your customers, provide a very consistent story, and just then execute on it. Then put out comics month after month. Don't get doomsday clock scenarios where the comic is, a year late. Just deliver and win the race, basically, by being the reliable, good story company, and not the hot-shotting variant covers with extra pages, new number one issue events every 3 months company, because that company is blowing up. Be the other company. Be the reliable one. I know, boring. Oh, very. The boring companies pick IBM. Yeah, be the IBM of comics. Just God, whoever. That is a statement that has not been said before. Be those guys. Anyway, what do you think? Crazy? Who makes it to the end of these videos? I don't know. I mean, some of you. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Sorry this went a bit long. Thank you for listening.